You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm Goose, and welcome to the show. Hope you guys had a great week. We had a good week this past week. We got a little bit behind on some of the stuff we normally do in regards to show preparation and printing off listener email and comments and so forth. Some of the listener email I've got printed off, some of it saved in my cell phone, so just bear with me. We want to start out this week and discuss the question of the week. Last week's question of the week: if you could time travel to any period, what would it be and why? And some of the responses that we got for that question. I think I would seek out a living Jesus and answer a world of questions. We have a lady named Liz that commented that said, well, as a female, this question is a little bit problematic because I would love to be in England during the Blitz on a farm helping the displaced British farmers, and to go to ancient Greece to listen to lectures while walking through and learning about from some of the brightest minds. I would also love to hang out with Oscar Wilde and Lord Byron and see all the romantics being ridiculous and dramatic in the early 1800s. But unless it's a safe fantasy world, any of these periods would have me raped or murdered for being a lone woman in a dangerous world. Now, if it's a safe fantasy world, my number one period adventure would be to go to the romantics early 1800s and ask me tomorrow, and I might change my mind. That come from a listener named Kim. A foreign listener wrote, I wouldn't. I would probably get some disease, and the doctor would recommend bloodletting and cocaine. We want to thank those guys for answering our question of the week. We also have some more that we'll get to throughout the rest of the show. Some listener emails that we got, and this first one, this is a lengthy email. The guy did not want to give his name. He was in the Army. He was a tank crewman. He was deployed 2 times to Iraq and Poland. In Iraq, he worked as a trainer in private security. In Poland, he was at headquarters. He worked with NATO forces to prevent Russian aggression, and he had secret clearance. I saw some really crazy technology like drone cameras that can see you holding a phone in your hand while thousands of feet above you. In Iraq, we had a computer where we could log on and see ourselves drive on the road from drones. Our technology is super advanced, and you have to have a right to clearance to view this technology. There's things that I wish I could tell, but I'm just not that brave enough. In my opinion, anything you think is possible is possible. And we have it. I've only been out for a little bit over a year, and I guarantee it's even more advanced now. I will say that we are always a step ahead of other nations, but they will never admit it. Our intelligence agency knows everything, like everything. I do believe something was recovered at Roswell, but I don't know what it was, and our government doesn't want us to know something. We won't know it. If they want something to leak, they will leak it. They are always one step ahead. I want to thank that listener that reached out and sent us that email. I wish he could have told us a little bit more. Maybe he will email back sometime. Also, sir, thank you for your service. Some more listener email. Jay from Kentucky writes, hello, Goose. I found last week's show very interesting. I've always been fascinated by time travel since watching Back to the Future as a kid. The idea of traveling back in time and seeing historic events right before your eyes as they are happening is mind-blowing to me. Even though I think it will be possible, I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime. What do you think? Well, Jay, I have no idea. The previous email, that I just read from a guy that had top secret clearance said, whatever you can imagine. that we have it. So we may see it in our lifetime. I hope we do. Ashley from Tennessee says, Here to Chew Bubblegum is my new favorite podcast. I'd love to hear a show about the Bell Witch sometime. Bobby from Texas emailed, I'd like to travel to the Civil War era. I do reenactments and would like to see it firsthand. Well, thank you guys very much for that. We do have some more contact from our audience coming up in regards to the question of the week. We do have a new question of the week. Okay. Our new question of the week. What's an unexplainable event that's happened to you? Again, our new question of the week. What's an unexplainable event that's happened to you? You can email me, Goose, at heretochewbubblegum.com. You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail at area code 606-373-3396. That's area code 606-373-3396 to answer our new question of the week. What is an unexplainable event that's happened to you? You can also comment on any of our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search Here to Chew Bubblegum. Okay, I also have some exciting news. Coming up next week, we will have a new guy on the show to do news headlines and read the news, and his name is Cronkite. Cronkite, welcome aboard. He will be added up on the website very soon on how to contact him and everything else. Let me grab my phone here, and I will read one more of our responses from last week's question of the week. Ray on our Facebook page commented, I would go to the future, get laser guns, then I would go back in time and hunt dinosaurs. Thank you very much, Ray, for commenting on that. Again, our new question of the week. What's an unexplainable event that's happened to you? You can email your answer to Goose at heretochewbubblegum.com, or you can call, text, or leave a voicemail at area code 606-373-3396. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to talk about the train versus UFO Paintsville, Kentucky incident in just a moment.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. If Abraham Lincoln were alive, he'd listen, but he's dead.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
Do you have a Roku device? Do you want to escape the everyday? Then download the Edge TV. That is the Edge TV on your Roku device, spelled capital T, capital H, #3. Let James, Stacy, Greg, and the rest of the gang keep you entertained. The Edge TV, available now on Roku.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose.
And welcome back. One of our most requested stories is the Paintsville, Kentucky train versus UFO incident that occurred on January 14th, 2002. Before we get to that, I just want to briefly talk about some other incidences that happened in Kentucky, not too far away from Paintsville. The first one is the Bluegrass Triangle UFO Blitz of 1978 that happened in central Kentucky. Basically, you had a UFO in the Madison-Fayette County areas. It was reported to the fire department. It was saw by a state trooper, by a preacher and his wife. They claimed that it was 10 to 20 stories high, 20 stories wide, that it had a zillion lights on it, and that it appeared approached their car on their way to church. There's also a teenager named Turry Kirby that took a Polaroid picture of it. And that happened close to the Bluegrass Army Depot. And that happened in Kentucky in 1978. Also, The bright hovering tubes incident happened October 16, 2012 in Pikeville, Kentucky. In 2012, an amateur astronomer in East Kentucky observed a UFO that he described like two fluorescent bulbs side by side. Those are rods. UFO rods are what those were called. It would get so bright that they would seem to merge, and you could see it clearly with the naked eye, he said. Then it would dim down, almost invisible. It wasn't anything that I recognized, definitely not an airplane, and I've seen a helicopter and never saw a helicopter that looked like that. Others in the area also reported seeing the same craft, and despite making national news, government officials could offer no explanation. Now, later on, that was said to be identified as an internet balloon. Okay? What is an internet balloon? I didn't know what an internet balloon was. I had to look it up. And, for instance, Google has an internet balloon project, and it's about to start its first commercial trial. The high-altitude balloons create an aerial wireless network that communicates with an antenna system on the ground powered by solar cells. Google was still testing theirs in 2019. Now, this happened in October 16th, 2012, over 8 years ago in Pike County, Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. The first question that I'm going to ask is, who in eastern Kentucky has enough money to put up an internet balloon to test wireless network communications? Now, I know some of your bigger cell phone providers and companies may, but wouldn't they have told people that they were going to do that when the story broke and made local news and national news? Wouldn't they have come forward and said that that's what it was? Well, nobody did, and I'm not convinced that that was an internet balloon. I just wanted to talk about those two cases to bring up, that there have been a lot of UFO activity reported in Kentucky. The Paintsville UFO train collision incident was first reported to the National UFO Reporting Center. That's where everything started. Okay, now I'm not going to say which agency, but I do have a public records request in to see if I can find some additional information on this. Okay, if you've never heard of the Paintsville train versus UFO collision, the story goes like this. At exactly 2:47 a.m. on January 14, 2002, while working on a coal train en route from Russell, Kentucky to Shelbyana, Kentucky, our trailing unit and the first two cars were severely damaged as we struck an unknown floating or hovering object. I know it was 2:47 because my watch froze, and to this day, that's what time it shows. Although my watch and the entire electrical systems on both locomotives went haywire, approaching a bend near milepost 42 in an area referred to as the Wild Kingdom, for the many different types of animals spotted there, my conductor saw lights coming from around the way. This ordinarily means another train is coming and that it will pass on the other track. The outlay of this area is the river, number 1 track and number 2 track, and it has a slight mountainside carved out for the lane of these tracks. I killed our lights as to not blind the oncoming crew. As we rounded the corner, our onboard computer began to flash in and out. The speed recorder went nuts and both locomotives died. Alarm bells began to ring, and that's when we saw the objects, apparently scanning the river for something. At least 3 objects had several searchlights trained there. The first object hovered about 10 to 12 feet above the track. It was a metallic silver in color with multiple colored lights near the bottom in the middle. There were no windows or openings of any kind that we could see. It was 18 to 20 feet in length and probably 10 feet high. With both engines dead as we rounded the corner, we made little noise, and the first object did not respond in time. I estimated we hit the object with a speed of 30 miles per hour while pulling 16,000 trailing tons behind us. It clipped the top of our lead unit and then skipped back, slicing a chunk out of our trailing unit and the first two of the coal cars. The other objects then vanished. Our emergency brakes initiated due to the loss of power, and we stopped approximately a mile or 2 miles after the impact. After our power was restored, we stopped and we notified our dispatcher located in Jacksonville, Florida, of what had happened. Now, all right, CSX, they are dispatched from Jacksonville, Florida. Every train in this part of the United States, Kentucky and the eastern part of the United States, are dispatched from Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. Once they told the dispatchers what had happened, they were told to inspect the cars and hold the rail and try to limp the locomotive into milepost 60, which used to be the Paintsville yard. It's no longer in full operation. We checked everything out, and the cab and the rear of the locomotive was demolished and smoking. The second two cars looked as if they had been hit with a giant hammer, but they looked like they would hold rail. We pulled into Paintsville Yard at approximately 5:15 a.m. The huge overhead lights were lining the yard were noticeably dark. The only lights came from what we assumed were railroad official vehicles parked near the end of the track. We pulled to a stop and began unloading our grips. We could hear what sounded like an army of workers immediately tending to our train. While vehicle doors opened and slammed, guys running by in weird outfits, and lights glaring from all directions. One thing was missing: railroad officials. A guy named Ferguson shook my hand and asked me to follow him into the old yard office. We did. Once inside, and by that I mean I have no idea who these people were, they began to ask us hundreds of questions. They then told us that for our own protection, we would be medically tested before we could leave. I asked repeatedly to talk to my road foreman or train master, and not only were these requests denied, they also confiscated the conductor's cell phone. Hours later, we were led outside to the old yard office, and strange things continued to happen. The two locomotives and two cars were removed from the tracks and were parked 4 tracks over under a huge tent with buzzing all around it. We were led off the property and told due to national security that our silence on this matter would be greatly appreciated. We were put in a railroad vehicle and taken to Martin, Kentucky, where we went through questioning again with railroad officials. And we were also drug tested. After all this, we were sent to Shelbyana, where we took rest for 8 hours and worked on another train back to Russell. Working back, we passed Paintsville. No sign of the engines, cars, tents, people, nothing. Okay, and that is the story of the train versus UFO incident that happened in Paintsville, Kentucky. Again, this is our first report on this. This has been our most requested story for the show. And like I said, we're going to do an investigation on this. This will be ongoing until we get solid proof to back this story up, if this really did happen. Again, I do have one at this time, public records request into an agency asking about this particular story. And I will keep you updated on that. That wasn't the first time a UFO has been spotted in Paintsville, Kentucky. In November of 1967, there was a young man who was in the car with his mother. They were driving to their house at Turner Branch when he thought he saw a UFO. He said it was cigar-shaped. It was only a few feet from above the telephone pole on the side of the road. It had red lights on one end and green lights on the other end, and that it was not traveling that fast. He said his heart began to race immediately as they were in front of the South Side Free Will Baptist Church, which is now a filling station. We turned onto Old Mill Road and booked it back to Paintsville. That was in November of 1967. Now, there's also been, from my research, another train versus UFO incident. On October 20th, 1973, in Indiana, around 6:50 a.m., a witness was a conductor of an L&N train and had an encounter with a UFO. Mount Vernon, Indiana is a very tiny town 15 miles west of the city of Evansville. The train passed through Mount Vernon and was headed to the town of Lamont Crossing, which is about 2 miles west of the outskirts of Evansville. A bright white light about the size of the sun was coming out of the north and turned and headed east. The brightness got brighter, and this UFO began following the train. The conductor told the rear conductor by intercom that they'd seen a bright light ahead of them. Once they got to the town, the railroad conductors agreed that something was going on because they had not been able to communicate on their two-way radios. By now, the railroad blocking system showed something approaching them. When they got up to Belknap Hill, a pretty steep hill, the train became immobilized. They knew that it wasn't right, but as they moved up and away from Lamont Crossing, the blocking system indicated a train was retreating, and it was a UFO that had been following them that had amber and green lights. And that was reported to MUFON. So that's not the first time that a train and the UFO have had an encounter. Again, that's an ongoing story, the Paintsville, Kentucky story, and we're going to do a investigation on that. We'll bring you updates as they become available. Moving on to our next topic of the show. We're going to talk about some unclassified government documents. Sometimes the government declassifies documents to the public. While this seems like a transparent act, sometimes it does little more than tease conspiracy theorists who never see the entire truth. This is just some that I found that I was going to bring up. Operation Paperclip. On the heels of World War II, as the Cold War began, both the United States and the Soviet Union recruited ex-Nazi scientists like Werner von Braun, who had relied on slave labor from concentration camps to design Germany's V-2 rockets. The United States secured 88 ex-Nazi scientists, and this was termed Operation Paperclip, in order to learn more about Nazi Germany's powerful weapons and technology. It's partly because of the secret operation that we now know about Hitler's extensive chemical warfare program. Another unclassified government document that's out there is Area 51, a classic birthplace for conspiracies about fallen alien ships and little green men. Lead to Area 51. Area 51 is shrouded in mystery. According to ex-government sources, this mysterious area of Nevada is mostly a test site for experimental military technology, like the superfast SR-71 Blackbird airplane, and not a secret extraterrestrial testing facility. It's still cool. The government did not acknowledge existence until Area 51, until a declassified CIA report made a mention in 2013. Bigfoot in Oregon. Bigfoot or Sasquatch, a long-rumored bipedal mammal that dwells in the forest of the Pacific Northwest. More simply, it's alleged that a hairy ape that walks around leaving behind footprints for people to find and appearing in blurry photographs. The FBI in 1976 officially began an investigation on unidentifiable hairs from the Dells, Oregon area, and people believe that they belong to Bigfoot. This investigation was declassified in 2019, and the test results were inconclusive. Does that mean that Bigfoot is still out there? And the last one on our government list of unclassified government documents: attempts to assassinate Fidel Castro. During the Cold War, the U.S. intervened in many foreign countries to prevent the spread of communism. Government bureaucrats worried about the domino effect, whereby if one country fell to communism, all the other countries in the area would also likely revolt. Fidel Castro, who had led Cuba into a communist revolt despite having relatively few resources and men, was no ally to the CIA. But recently, the classified government documents reveal that the CIA even went as far as to negotiate with mobsters to put a hit on the dictator, hoping to install a more U.S.-friendly leader of the nearby island. And those are some declassified government documents. What's your thoughts on those, or the Paintsville, Kentucky UFO incident, or the mentions of the Bluegrass Triangle, or the incident that happened in October 2012 in Paintsville, Kentucky? Reach out and tell us. You can email me, Goose, at heretochewbubblegum.com. You can also call, text, or leave a voicemail at area code 606-373-3396. That's area code 606-373-3396. Our question of the week last week: if you could travel to any time period, what would it be and why? Our friend of the show, Bobby Akers, says 3 places come to mind: the crucifixion of Christ, the Roswell incident, and the assassination of JFK. Listener also commented, Karen says that question should also ask, if you can time travel to the past, would you change the past? For example, I would love to time travel back to stop my father's accidents and save him, but how would that change my present? I want to thank you guys for commenting on our question of the week. Our new question of the week for this week: what's an unexplainable event that has happened to you? Our question of the week for this week: what's an unexplainable event that has happened to you? You can answer that question by sending me an email, goose at heretochewbubblegum.com. You can call, text, leave a voicemail. It's easy to do. Just call 606-373-3396. That's 606-373-3396. You can like, comment, share, subscribe on all of our social media pages in regards to the question of the week. We're going to take a break and come back with news. And don't forget, coming up next week, we have a new news guy. Cronkite will be joining us at heretochewbubblegum.com. After the news, we're going to have an interview with John the Bod, the host of the Bods Mayhem Hour, so be sure to stick around for that. You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. We'll be right back.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
NASA has discovered water on the sunlit surface of the moon, scientists said on Monday, a finding that could help in efforts to establish a permanent human presence on the lunar surface. NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFA, an airborne observatory housed in a modified Boeing 747 airliner, detected water molecules on some craters in the moon's southern hemisphere. One of the largest craters can be seen from Earth. Water ice has been found on the moon before in the coldest, darkest regions of the North and South Poles, but the new findings suggest that water may be present across more of the lunar surface beyond just the areas that are frigid and permanently in shadow. This is exciting news because the expectation is that any water present on the sunlit surface of the moon could not survive a lunar day. Paul Hertz, director of the NASA division in Washington, D.C., said in a news briefing on Monday, the discovery has important implications for human exploration, especially as NASA aims to fly astronauts back to the moon in 2024. Hertz said that water on the moon could be used as a resource for astronaut crews or as fuel for expeditions traveling deeper into space, such as future missions to Mars. From the UK, a secret UK file about a famous UK sighting restricted from the public is going to be restricted from the public for another 50 years. The secret file is said to contain incredible color photographs of an incident that happened in 1990. In this incident, 2 hitchhikers claimed they saw a 100-foot craft hovering above Calvin in Scotland. A secret file also details one of Britain's most famous UFO sightings is to be kept secret for another 50 years. The hikers walking in the area in 1990 suddenly saw a diamond-shaped aircraft over the landscape and began speeding off into the distance. The 2 hikers took pictures and immediately contacted journalists from the Scottish Daily Record newspaper. After viewing the photos, the journalists said they had to share both pictures and negatives with the Ministry of Defense. A 30-year rule meant the file was to be declassified January of 2021, but the Ministry of Defense has now blocked its release for another 50 years, making it 2072 when they could possibly get released. Strange lights have been spotted in South Carolina. Strange lights flashing in broad daylight compared to a fleet of alien ships. Some extraordinary amateur video was posted on the net with dozens of strange lights flashing in daylight sky above Spartansburg, South Carolina. Some people could not believe what they were seeing, while one person reported he thought it was an alien fleet. Mysterious lights flashing in the sky above the city during the day has been compared to an alien fleet, as said one top UFO expert, believing this is an example of contact with extraterrestrials. News from the space station. A Russian cosmonaut spots mysterious lights from the International Space Station. The cosmonaut Ivan Wagner currently resides on the International Space Station, and he shared strange footage on Twitter. The cosmonaut captured footage of mysterious lights. Let's see. However, in the video, you can see something else. Not only the aurora at 9 minutes 12 seconds, but 5 objects appear alongside with the same distance. Could they be meteors or satellites? The strange lights are likely satellites, being the most culprit. SpaceX's Starlink fleet says. However, in the video has raised some fears of UFOs or aliens. Well, we reported last week on Demi Lovato and her experience and contact with aliens. We're going to go back and talk about some more celebs. Not to be outdone, Miley Cyrus also said that she's played many roles throughout her life, beginning with Hannah Montana. But she says at the same time, UFOs were not part of her life, or at least that's what the public thought. In a new article, Cyrus is quoted by saying the best way to describe a UFO that she saw is a flying snowplow. It had a big plow on the front and it was glowing yellow, describing that she was eye to eye with an alien encounter. I did see it flying and my friend saw it too. Some other celebs recently come forward also claiming Post Malone reported on the Joe Rogan Experience in July that shortly after Mystery Wire's George Knapp's appearance on Rogan's podcast, Malone said he saw UFOs in New York, Utah, and California. I'm like, how did no one else see this? But there I was with 4 or 5 other people, and they saw it too. Kurt Russell in November of 2018 revealed on a Jimmy Kimmel show that he witnessed a possible UFO sighting. I was flying. There were this bank of lights in the shape of a triangle near the airport, he said. Years later, I come home to Goldie Hawn, who was watching this show on UFO, and one of the reports said that this took place at Phoenix. I started to see this show, and I said, wait a minute. That's the night I was landing in Phoenix. And don't forget, coming up next week, our new guy, Cronkite, will be doing the news at Here to Chew Bubblegum. We'll have all his contact information up on the website very soon. But we're going to take a short break and come back with the host of Bods Mayhem Hour and Ghost Hunter, John. Be sure to stick around for that. You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Be sure to check out our website, heretochewbubblegum.com. We'll be right back.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
We're at the interview portion of the show, and we have a very special guest, John the Bod from the Bods Mayhem Hour. John hosts the show. He's hosted it for several years now, and John's also an avid ghost hunter. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Goose, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be on here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your show.
Basically, Bods Mayhem Hour is a podcast that covers musical bands, of course, from heavy metal, rock, punk, horror punk, alternative, new metal, all across the board. Also, we interview national and local bands, and we cover music festivals and paranormal and horror conventions when we are able to, because there's a lot of stuff that we intertwine with Bods Mayhem Hour.
Well, that is awesome. How did your show start?
Basically, I never knew how much I needed music until I needed it in my darkest time. And music actually saved my life. So I wanted to repay it, and hopefully someone else that is going through a rough time or dark time can turn to music for a light at the end of that tunnel that can pull them out, hopefully.
I can totally understand that. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Three Doors Down.
Yes, sir.
They have a song, I can't think of I think the name of it's The Only One You've Got. And there's lyrics in that. Have you heard that song?
I probably have, Goose,
Okay.
To be honest with you.
There is lyrics in that song that says, your past does not define you. It tells you who you're not. Mm-hmm. And that, when I heard that years ago, that spoke to me. I mean, that was just, at the time of my life, the stuff I was going through, those lyrics, they just spoke to me. So I can totally understand, your love for music. My dad was a musician, country. It really wasn't my style back when I was little. But I totally understand that.
Yeah. And I've always told folks, I don't care if you like rap. I don't care if you like bluegrass, country, whatever you like that gets you through something, then go for it, man. If that's what pulls you through, then who am I to judge you? It helped you out through your dark time.
Exactly. The older I've got, I'll be 46 in December. And the older I've got, my musical taste is more broad now than it ever was. I mean, I still like Metallica, and I don't like Metallica as much when they got me kicked off Napster back in the early 2000s. But, I still like my Metallica, Iron Maiden. I like some of today's country stuff, some of the old school country stuff. Johnny Cash was the man. One of my biggest regrets is I never saw Tom Petty in concert. I was a huge Tom Petty fan. And,
I want to go back to this just a little bit, because Metallica, everybody knows I'm a huge Metallica fan that knows me. And I know some are sick of me telling this story, but, if it helps somebody that I'm going to tell it to the day I die, I don't care. It helped me, so maybe it'll help somebody else. But Master of Puppets is the album that saved my life, because it was everything that I needed that could speak for me. And I guess let me escape, if that makes sense, when you put that album on, or any album that you listen to. But it was my voice. It was my anger. It was everything that I felt inside. The boys from Metallica was preaching it in that album. You know what I mean? It's like every song was my fight, my battle. And it just made me feel comfortable. I mean, my dad was going through a really rough time, but that actually pulled me through. And I don't know where I'd be right now, Goose, if I didn't have that album. That's for sure.
Right. I can totally understand that. Sadly, my dad passed away about 8 years ago to pancreatic cancer. And there was so much stuff that, me and him wanted to do, when I was growing up, and we never got time. And about 10 years ago, I'll tell you this story real quick. And he said, now that we've got time, this was 2 years before he passed away. He's like, I think we need to make that trip to Roswell. And, he passed away and we never got to do it. Well, me and my son did it last year, and we had a blast. And our last day there before we started back, we went out into the desert in Roswell. We drove probably for like 3 hours. I mean, really far out. We stopped beside the road. I bought this little container, and I filled it full of dirt and put a big rock on it. Before we got on the plane to come back home, I stopped at the post office and mailed it. And when it arrived home, I took it to my dad's grave, and I put the dirt from Roswell on top of his grave. And,
oh, nice.
To me, he never got a chance to take me and go, but I mean, he was there with me in my heart when we did that. And, you're only a handful of people I've told that story to. And, so, getting back to your show, do you have any favorite guests that you've interviewed?
Every guest that's been on Bods Mayhem Hour is special to me in their own unique way, from
Right.
locals to nationals. But the one that sticks out the most, I always say Zach Wild, but I mean, Dave Brocky from Guar, who was Odorous Urungus. So that was one of my favorite interviews because I got to listen to Odorous as David. You know what I mean? I got to listen to him as just David talking instead of as Odorous Urungus. But it was cool because you could still see the temperament between David and Odorous. They you know what I mean? It's like he was still Odorous, but it was just in David form, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, I got to interview him, and it was like a couple weeks later he passed away from a heroin overdose.
Right.
And I was so mad because when's it going to stop? Just it's hard to kick. I know it's a disease, but just stop, folks. Just put it down. Walk away.
Yeah. Some people, in those dark spaces like you were talking about earlier, they have no control when it comes to that, and ultimately their demons do win out. Is there anybody that you do look forward to interviewing, or like is on your to-do list? Like the ultimate interview for you would be who?
Oh yeah, Metallica, hands down. Yeah, Metallica, for sure. That's my number one goal, is to interview those guys. And trust me, I love everybody that's been on Bods Mayhem Hour. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But that's my number one right there. I've had a chance to interview other ones. I put in requests, but sadly, I get denied. And that's fine. I don't expect to get every interview, but sometimes folks, hey, throw me a bone. Come on, look how much I've done.
Hey, just keep trying. Keep plugging away. I noticed over the last couple of months they've been on Howard Stern a couple of times.
Yeah,
So, and they, sounded good.
I do have some interviews coming up that I've already done. That's getting ready to be posted. Who's been in the San Francisco Symphony that worked with Metallica on S&M 2. So Edwin Outwater, who's the conductor, Bruce Coughlin, and Scott Pingle, they're all going to be on Bods Mayhem Hour. So those episodes get ready to come out. And plus Ben Wells from Blackstone Cherry. Trust me, folks, there's a lot more stuff coming down the pipe. I'm just one person doing Bods Mayhem Hour, so just give me some time. They will get posted. Trust me.
There you go. Going to ghost hunting for a little bit, because, you're an avid ghost hunter. What has been the most frightening experience that you've ever had?
I wouldn't say most frightening for me. I mean, they all come in their own shape, size, and forms. Everything differently is unique with this. So everything that you go into, But Octagon Hall kind of threw me back a little bit because we got there during the day for an overnight investigation. There was another couple that came in, and Bill wanted to take them on a tour. And I was like, he asked us if we wanted to go, and we said, yeah. So during the tour, we got to the little girl's room who had passed away from burns that she suffered during a fire. Basically, her little nightgown got caught on fire, and she subsequently died because of those. But her door, Goose, right in the middle of the day, they were in the room, they come out of the room, they turned around, and the door shut on its own. I mean, this is a very heavy door. So it did not move from wind or anything like that. It was not fabricated, whatever. We checked the door was fine. Fixed it, opened it back up, come back out again, turn around, shut again. Twice that door shut. And of course, we didn't have anything to record with. Third time, nothing. Third time, door was fine.
So that's a moment that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Yeah, it was kind of out there because, this was a place like a safe haven for the Civil War, for the North and the South at that time. So it interests me very much because I want to know what it was, who it was. We tried to figure it out if it was just something maybe house related, just to throw caution to the wind. What could it be? But no, we could not find anything that would cause it to shut. And later on that evening, I should say, we were setting up, and I left the front door open, and there's another door that goes down to the basement. That door was open, just so that way we could bring stuff in. And I get to the top of the step to go out down to the porch there, or down to the sidewalk. The basement door slams. And I mean, it was so loud, and it was not from the suction from the doors or anything like that. I was just like, how did that slam? Because the only way to get that door open, shut, is unless you reach down and pull it towards you. So that freaked me out. That right there freaked me out because there was an eerie feeling, I'd say right around the edge of darkness. For me, personally, I just felt like time changed, if that makes sense. It's like everything changed. The atmosphere changed for me. So that had me just a little on edge the rest of the night for sure.
Right. Well, you are on Here to Chew Bubblegum, and our main topic that we like to talk about is extraterrestrial life, extraterrestrial UFOs, and man-made UFOs. We also talk about other subjects such as other dimensions, time travel, and I wanted to ask you our question of the week. We've had a huge response in emails, people posting on Twitter, on Facebook. Our question of the week, and I'm asking you this. If you could go to any time period, if you could time travel and go to any period, what would it be and why?
Ooh, I'm a very, very huge war buff, if that makes sense. I'm interested in all war stuff that took place. I want to say 1940 to 1950 would be where I'd want to go. That's because we entered the war, the European war against Hitler's Nazi Germany. I think during that time, if I'm not mistaken, to defend against Japan's thrust into the Pacific in 41. So all this was taking place, and we at the time, man, all we had was the radio, newsreels, media. That's it. That's all you had. Nobody got to see what actually happened on the front of the lines and things like that. So that's for me. That's where I'd want to go, or either maybe to like Civil War era. Those two for sure.
All right. Do you think that a flying saucer crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947?
That's a good question, man.
Okay. Let me give you a little insight on that question. Now I'll ask you the question again. Keep in mind that after 1947, the transistor was invented. like less than 10 years later, it was in little AM, FM radios. You had the microwave, and those are just a couple of things off the top of my head. With those in mind, do you think that a flying saucer crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947?
I'd say very good possibility. Very good possibility, because they keep it so locked down with all this information. But if I'm not mistaken, didn't they like release documents about Roswell, about the UFO landing, but they blacked a lot of stuff out? Am I wrong on that, Goose?
No, you're actually right on that. There is a lot of stuff blacked out, and you know, I mean, that happened in 1947, and there's still a lot of stuff that's not been released. And some of the research that I've done up until that happened, and I think Jesse Marcel, I can't think of the guy's name, the one that actually broke the story that, we'd captured an alien craft. And then they came back the next day and said, no, it was a weather balloon. They had no protocol in place that if something like that happened. And, working with the public and how policies and procedures and protocol are set up and followed, if you don't have protocol and you're the top man in charge on that scene, I think that he told the truth. And I think that the retraction the next day was a cover-up. That's just my personal opinion, based on research that I've read and so forth. But, I think that it did happen. And I think that we did recover alien technology, because think about the way that our technology advanced after 1947. It advanced totally. And still, we have, we have the Space Force that was created late last year, And so if something is, and plus the government, they did release video back in April of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. But something is definitely, in my opinion, going on. Have you ever saw a UFO?
Yes, honestly.
What can you tell us a little bit about what you saw?
This was several years ago. I remember it to this day. It was several years ago, and it was in late December, around 9:45, 10 o'clock, maybe even a little later than that, because they talked about it on the news, right on my porches. And we didn't hear it, Goose. We didn't hear it at all. Nothing whatsoever. I just looked up and seen it over the top of the mountain, and I could see the lights flashing. And it was there hovering for a good 8-9 minutes.
Right.
And then it just went down, just like out of nowhere. And I was like, okay. My friend there, she was standing there with me, and I said, did you see that? She's like, I saw it, but I don't know if I believe it. I said, I saw it too. I said, did you hear anything? She said, no, I did not hear anything. The funny part was, at 11 o'clock on the news, they were talking about it. It wasn't just here. They saw it in multiple counties. So I was like, well, right. that may be something that, that's legit. I know what I saw. So, right. And I can honestly say, yeah, I saw something that I cannot explain, because if you have a helicopter or whatever, you would hear the blades from it. You would hear the sound. Could it have been a stealth bomber? Possibly. Why would it be here? Why would it be hovering in Little Martin? You know? Yeah. So, yeah, I do think that I should say, I do think that I did see a UFO for sure. But that's me.
I myself, and I've told this story before, in the mid 90s, I did see one over a lake in Knott County, and it was triangular shaped, chevron shaped, and it had multicolor lights on it. And I even pulled off the road to look at it, and it was hovering above the treetops, and within 30 seconds, it stopped. It hovered for a few seconds, and then it just shot straight up in the air. And that's something I've never forgot. Do you think that there's intelligent life out there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't think that we're the only ones here. I just think it's a matter of time before something really, shows itself, in my opinion.
Right. I agree with you there. what do you think that the government will in the next 5 years will disclose the fact that there is aliens?
Possibly. The way things are going right now, you don't know what to believe. You don't know what to take that is actually legit. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah, anything's up in the air right now since it's 2020. Everything is up in the air.
You know, when they released those videos back in April, what blew my mind is that nobody really seemed to care. You know, I mean,
Right.
that should have been a big story.
Yes.
You know, because you've had millions and millions of people, you know, asking, you know, is there life out there? Is there such thing as flying saucers? And they released that video and said, you know, we have no idea what this is. We know that it's not made on our planet. And nobody really seemed to care. You know, to me, that's the government saying, yeah, you know, they're real. And from some research I've been doing and things I've been reading, they're supposed to sometime next year even go further. I don't know if they're going to release more video or if they're going to come clean a little bit, but you can go back and read, if you can find it online, and I can't remember what site it was on, in I think June or July of 1985, there was a page in Ronald Reagan's diary where he had met with scientists and NATO and NASA, and he was talking about how, you know, he was informed that we had a spaceship that could haul 300 people, and this was in 1985, when you know you had a max of 8 people in like Challenger and Enterprise, you know, max of 8 people, but yet in 1985, you know, 35 years ago, Ronald Reagan wrote in his diary that, you know, he was informed that the United States had a ship that could haul 300 people. To me, that is just mind blowing. Mm-hmm. You know.
So, what's your thoughts on? Now, this is a show that I've been watching a lot that comes on TV. I'm not going to name the show or the channel, but they showed these videos of these Air Force guys on video catching these UFOs. And I think this is the video that they released. One's called like it looked like a Tic Tac shaped object.
Yeah, that plummets into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you've got different definitions of UFOs. To me, that looked like your standard, what's called a rod UFO. You know, that looked like, you know, you said Tic Tac, but to me, that's like a standard rod. I think rod UFOs are real. I don't know if that is just like a one person or if it's like a alien or a UFO drone that they send out, but I definitely think that was real. And that happened in California, I think, off Catalina Island. And, you know, that particular place is a hot spot for UFO activity. And, you know, I'm just, you know, when I talk to people off the air and we talk about this, you know, I think anything's possible. I always try to keep an open mind. You know, when I was several years ago when I was in school, you know, you had all the planets in our solar system. That was it. You know, now, you know, there's other planets and other solar systems. And for us to think that we're the only life form there, you know, here that even exists, I think that's, you know, you're really small-minded if you think that.
Oh, yeah. What about the Skinwalker Ranch? That has a lot of UFO sightings.
Yeah,
have you checked into that?
Yeah, I've watched that series. I've not done so much research and digging into it. I did a little bit when the series came out, and what I found about that, I can't think of the guy's name, but the guy that originally had the ranch and sold it to the people that created the Skinwalker Ranch TV show. He's worked for the government for years on like SpaceX and space technology and others and so forth. And I think that, you know, I mean, you recently, and I did a news story on last Sunday's show about, a parallel universe being in Antarctica, but they said that it wouldn't. It was just compacted snow and other stuff. I think that stuff like that is possible. I read a story because I'm always doing research for the show, and I read a story that, and I even did a news story. I just briefly went over it on last Sunday's show that was talking about a Nazi base in the Antarctic, and there was after the war was over, there was a fleet of ships that went to Antarctica to try to find this Nazi base. Well, when they get there, they get on land. UFOs are spotted. The UFOs are hostile, so they actually retreat. So they didn't even get to look around. To me, and I'll probably mention that story and do a segment on that on the show sometime. To me, I think that that's fascinating because look at the technology that the Nazis had. They had the jet propulsion before we did. They had, and they had to get that technology from somewhere.
Sure.
And for them not to even get to look, and from what I could find, nobody's ever been back to that part of Antarctica. And they were chased off by hostile UFOs, and they never went back. And to me, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, and I hope people understand that there's things out there that you see that you did actually see. Don't question yourself. And I mean, I know people do, and it's hard to say, yeah, I just saw what I saw, because we see so much and my mind's just playing tricks on me. But when you see something for the first time and you don't really believe in it and you see it, it knocks you back.
Oh yes, definitely. It definitely does. I think too that some of the UFO sightings that people see, especially I think it's the TR-3B, that's the triangle UFO with the red light in the middle and the white lights all the way around it. I think that one is man-made. I really do, and I think that we made that from reverse engineering alien technology. And some of the things people see, I think that there's humans in them flying them, testing them out, flying them. And others are truly extraterrestrial. You can go watch some of the NASA footage. I think this one was in the mid-90s when you see the UFO coming in, trying to come to our atmosphere, and then something comes up, and it kind of looks like, Reagan's Star Wars plan. It kind of looks like a missile was going at it, and the UFO retreats and goes back, So it's just fascinating, I just keep doing research, and I love doing the show. Like I know you love doing your show. Do you want to tell the audience where they can check your show out at? And we'll also have links on the website as well. But John, take it away.
You can go to YouTube and just search up Bods Mayhem Hour. Same with Podbean. You can go to iHeartRadio. You can go to Spotify. Pretty much you can go to Bods Mayhem Hour Facebook page. All the links are on there as well. So it's like I said in the intro, I'm all over the place with Bods Mayhem Hour. And I'm getting ready to do my Halloween special, which is tomorrow, Saturday. We'll have the Trash Bats on there doing a live acoustic set, and they're really awesome. So I'm very excited to have them back for a second time on this. And this makes the 8th annual Bods Mayhem Hour Halloween Bash. And so still doing it. And January we'll make 10 years. So hopefully just keep pounding the road.
Congratulations on that. And John, thank you for being here for the interview. And we look forward to having you back.
Always, Goose. Just reach out to me, my man.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
Do you have a Roku device? Do you want to escape the everyday? Then download the Edge TV. That is the Edge TV on your Roku device, spelled capital T, capital H, #3. Let James, Stacy, Greg, and the rest of the gang keep you entertained. The Edge TV, available now on Roku. And welcome back to Here to Chew Bubblegum. I want to say thanks to John, the host of the Bods Mayhem Hour, and Ghost Hunter for being on the show. I want to give a special thanks to my friend Carlin for doing all of our voiceover work and providing the music of Flannery. Be sure to check out deadpit.com to see what CK, Uncle Bill, and ST3B are up to. Thank you guys at Dead Pit, and be sure to check out the Edge TV show on Roku. Be sure to tune in this Wednesday for our MidWeek Moment, as Cronkite will be joining us with news headlines, and we will be talking about what we're going to talk about on the show, next week's show coming up at the MidWeek Moment. Some of the things that we're thinking about doing at heretochewbubblegum.com is myself and Cronkite, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, are going to do some Rando Nautica, and we're going to post that on our YouTube page. If you don't know what that is, just Google Rando Nautica or go to YouTube and fall down that rabbit hole. If there's any shows that you want us to talk about, please, contact us. Let us know. Thank you guys very much for listening, and we will see you next week at Here to Chew Bubblegum. Thanks again, and God bless.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.